Hello, I am Luba Vangelova. I am the founder of the Hub, and I am here with Yong Zhao, who is a professor of education, and I will let you give a little bit more detailed introduction of yourself.
Sure. I'm Yong Zhao. I'm a professor of education at the University of Kansas. I've worked in quite a number of different universities in the US, in Australia, and in UK and China. And most of really my work has to do with the future of education and the necessary changes we have to take place in schools for our children really to live a better life.
All right. And so today we're going to be talking a little bit about AI in education. So, can you kind of summarize? Um, Based on the state of the art, which changes quite rapidly in AI now, how do you envision AI tools changing what education looks like and how children experience it?
Well, I think, Luba, the first one you mentioned is really important, that AI changes really fast. And so I don't think right now that schools are doing the right thing with AI. They are trying to fight so-called plagiarism, how kids have to use AI to do homework, teachers use AI to plan their lessons. I don't think those ideas actually help a lot. That's just what I would call an easy way to say, oh, AI can do this. I'll use this, I'll do that. But AI changes so fast that you cannot say, I'm using ChatGPT today and the lesson will be the same next year. No, that will be a different tool. So I think that the real question for all educators, actually parents, to think about is now we live with AI. Whatever the tool is, it is getting smart in some areas than human beings. It is still not, good enough for human beings in other areas. It is how do we help our children to live with AI or co-evolve, I would say, with AI and treat AI as an intelligent partner. Imagine you have a human assistant. Well, we used to call them pedagogue, or used to call them educational slaves. In that sense, that come to serve you. That person has bias. That person has hallucination. That person is not perfect. So you have to say, how does that person work with your children and children grow together? And this is an experience. We need our children to think differently. Another problem is right now, I think our schools still think about, I have to teach you something. It's still about knowledge collection, information collection. It's not about thinking. We have to teach our people how to think. We have to teach our people how to find problems. We have to teach our children how to use AI to refine their problems. I don't think we're doing any of that. We're still trying to teach math. We're still trying to teach chemistry, physics, language in the traditional way. Right now, writing is probably an easy example. Traditionally, say you have to write. You can use AI to modify. That's not necessarily true. You can have AI to do draft, and then you develop that, you refine that. I think in the future, how to develop prompts, how to use data, how to force AI to write something that more like your style is probably a different ability than traditional AI. I'm sorry, and traditional writing. So we have to really completely rethink about this. Also, AI is multimodal. It's image, it's text, it's audio, and it can produce text, audio, and video, and images. And you can input audio, video, and text. So that changes how we think about language. Traditionally we think language is important. Of course, reading is important. Don't get me wrong. However, in the age you can input natural language orally, And that is different than you have to write text, into I mean, into other people's mind is different now. So I think we have to rethink about AI and rethink about what's the purpose of education and what needs to be taught. That's probably the most important. What needs to be taught, what doesn't need to be taught. I think developing ability, thinking. Well, I don't like use those terms like critical thinking, which is really like empty word. What does it mean by critical thinking? I mean, you have to develop a sense of evaluating information, generating information. But to generate information with AI, you need to learn how to prompt it. And but prompt is not one standard science to say, well, we'll teach you how to give prompt. But that's just doesn't work because for every individual task, you might need to develop a different process of prompting.
Mm. And as things evolve, I mean, given that the landscape is changing so fast, how, like, what is the best way for people to even know what the best way to use AI is and to keep up with it? I mean, how does one even keep up with it when the pace of change is, I think starting to go almost vertical?
Well, I think experience. I think the traditional sense of a stable set of knowledge does not exist anymore. Everything is dynamic and iterative. You just have to jump in and play and also do not be a prisoner of your own imagination. You just have to experiment, which is kind of life anyway. I was just suddenly thinking about why I don't know why, but Lewis and Clark came to explore the U.S. But imagine you shrink that 1 year or 2 years into a day. What would you do? You suddenly you're in the desert, in the mountains, in the rivers. So I think it's you have to get into that. I think traditional education has prepared us stability mindset. That is, you tell me what I should do. That means you've run your experiments, you summarize your journey, you give to me, then I can replicate. That doesn't work that way. I think our children, as soon as they get on some kind of AI tools, their mind can change very quickly because knowledge is different. But if you are there just seeking an answer, I think that's the mistake of many people make. Yeah, treating AI as an answer machine. I type in a question, you give me a bunch of answers, then I'm happy. It's not like that. Even AI gives different answers to different people. That's a
Mm,
dynamic process. It's very dynamic. And also, AI does not only give you an answer, AI does reasoning with you. The reasoning process may be different from human reasoning, but it pretends and needs to reason quite well. But how do you deal with that? The only way is through experience. If you have more experience with it and you develop a critical perspective with AI, and then you treat that AI as, again, a partner who is willing to work with you and who is willing to be challenged, you will get, you know, quite far. Another thing, of course, AI or AI tools, in order to market them, they always have tuned AI tools to go with you. Like whenever you say something, oh, I apologize, my mistake, and AI, that's AI's problem. You need to understand, you need to be more challenging to AI. How are you going to question it? And you have to push AI to do something. You have to deliberate. You can say, well, don't give me that answer. Don't apologize to me. You can force it to say, well, do this. So I think this vertical, rapid development is true. But what you need is deep dive in and expand your prompts, I mean, to work with it.
And so, what about the fact that, as I imagine you also have noticed, mistakes are made, and it, different tools seem to almost hallucinate some things that they tell you. Um, how does one even use critical? Well, you said you don't like the term critical thinking, but a critical perspective, if one is not already a subject matter expert in whatever it is discussing with AI, how do you figure out what is being hallucinated and what is real?
Well, I think that that is the first of all, I would like to say AI hallucinates a lot, but probably not as much as human beings. If you look at today's world, how much hallucination is there on TV, newspaper, social media? I mean, in government offices, probably not as much in that sense. Whatever we need to develop to deal with the real world, it needs to be developed to deal with AI. So I think it's easy to criticize AI. I'm not defending AI, by the way. I'm just feeling sad about humanity. So that's a different story. Is that I think the way to deal with it again is you develop knowledge and you develop skills. I mean, knowledge is not stable, but the more you interact with something, the more you will discover it. That's how human beings learn, right? In our schools, if you go to in after probably you've gone to school for 30 years, you realize the history they taught you was complete hallucination, right? I mean, it's you probably realize, God, that was wrong. Another thing is like even in math, the math that taught you probably is not really as good math as you will realize later on. A lot of knowledge we teach in elementary school, in middle school, is actually a partial hallucination. If you think about, Isaac Newton's theory, until you deals with Einstein, you didn't. Oh God, that's just part of the explanation of our physical world. So it's like I treat AI hallucination as a normal process. It will always hallucinate, and also because the data it fits in is already biased, so it
Mm,
will be biased. It's like you're dealing with people from different cultures. There's a lot of different cultures in the world, and they are always biased against each other. So
mm,
when you deal with that, what are you gonna do? That's the reality. So I think again, experiences and always be suspicious. Like I'm always suspicious of people saying, making strong statements. Maybe not. But what are you going to do? You will run into those people a lot, right? You go to a restaurant, go to a bar, and say, oh, somebody's making. Say, no, that cannot be true. But people are talking. So I think it's like that. You develop always hold a perspective that you don't believe anything,
mm,
and but at the same time you have to believe something. So
mm,
you examine that from a really critical evaluation process. I think we need to human beings need to do that anyway. Like every day when we get out there, when you read something, is that true? How possible is that? I think that's the kind of ability we need to develop in real life with or without AI anyway.
mhm. Well, I know that we've got limited time today. Hopefully, we can continue this conversation. Thank you for kind of starting down this path of discussing this fascinating topic. I think there will be a lot more to discuss as things evolve, and I look forward to doing an even deeper dive on this with you in the future. But thank you for today's interview.